Hey guys, Marty here. This is the second part of my wanding video. This part I'm going to cover kind of starting out as a wander, MF setups for wanders, and I'm going to be talking about it mostly from a hardcore perspective. If you're on softcore, this information is still relevant, but it's not necessary to do it this way, and there's probably more optimizations you can make on softcore, but I don't play softcore, and you know, so I'll be talking about this mostly from hardcore perspective, but the things I'm going to go over are kind of, starting out as a wander, leech starting with it, which I don't highly recommend if you have no items at all. Um, ways to make the maps more smooth, what maps I would recommend running, auras, pantheons, all that good stuff. But anyways, the first thing to know as a wanderer, as a leech starter, if you're completely untwinked, it is not a smooth character 2 level. It's pretty difficult to kill bosses with, and it's very squishy. But if you can make it to Blood Aqueducts on a Wander, you're going to be basically good to go. From there, you can just farm that Blood Aqueducts until 75, 76, 78, whatever point you reach, the currency to get the early on items. And then once you have those, you're good to make it into maps. You can just farm low tier maps as long as you want, and it'll kind of get you all the way to the point that my current wander is at. If you want to see my current wander, I do have a video on that. It's the first part of this series, and I'll link it in the description below. As far as if you want to level a wander, I also have a video on that. I will also link in the description below. It's 3 hours long. The first 5 minutes are kind of just going over the twink gear that I use. And the last 5 minutes are reviewing the tree, but you can see in the middle, it's the entire process of leveling up the wander. And I do think it's a pretty useful tool. You can see how I handle all the bosses and all of that stuff. But anyways, as far as wanders as a lead start, with no twink gear, it's extremely hard, but if you have about 50 or 60 chaos that you can spend on some leveling gear, then it'll be very smooth. It's pretty fun to play and, very easy. The specific gear you can check in my leveling video, but if you don't have any gear, I recommend that you level with a friend or, find some way to level with Sunder. I don't know, it's going to be pretty tough. Personally, I don't start as Wanderers with no gear unless I have a friend. This league in particular, I actually league started with a Spectral Shield throw with the intention of transitioning to a Wander by the end of the first day. And I did manage to succeed at that. We transitioned to a Wander, but the Spectral Shield throw was terrible, guys. I think I would have been better off starting as Sunder or Bows, and if I do the same sort of strategy next league, I will absolutely be starting with Bows or Sunder. But that being said, you could try Spectral Shield Throw. If you can make it to Blood Aqueducts without gear on that, then props to you, and at that point you can farm up all the Wander items you need, but yeah, it's going to be rough. Gear-wise, basically as a Wander, the first thing you're going to want to be getting is your Queen of the Forest as fast as possible, or a Tabula Rasa. Tabula is an extremely undervalued item with new players. 6 white sockets linked may not seem that good because there's no stats on the item, but this will allow your damage to be high enough to where you're one-shotting monsters. And if you're one-shotting monsters, then that is a defense in and of itself. For this character, I had just died and lost my headhunter, a Purifier Watcher's Eye that I paid about 200 chaos for, and a bunch of other gear in my previous wander. To a disconnect, I accidentally hit my logout macro at full life, and when I logged back in, I was dead. But I had about 250 chaos to my name. My first purchase was this Queen of the Forest, 6 link. It was totally underpriced. It was about 250 chaos. I had nothing else at the time, and I just had to make do with what I got. So the first thing I did was I ran some Sedemas. These gloves are really cheap. It's about 5 chaos on hardcore to get 16 quantity Sedemas, and if you think you can get the damage from your jewels and stuff, they're probably the way to go. But if you can't get the damage from your jewels because you have no money, Thunderfists are the budget wander option. You can link a Barrage in here, or you can link a Kinetic Blast in here. It gives you a pseudo 5 link, and it gives 1 to 100 flat lightning damage. That's like having a top tier Abyss Jewel added to your items. It also gives some attack speed. It's just a really all-around great item. And if you're doing wanders as a lead start, this is going to be the gloves that will kind of enable you to start wanding. your best early weapon and just kind of the weapon you're going to be aiming to get in general is a Piscators. Um, these wands are actually going up in price. Originally, when I intended to make this video a couple of weeks ago, they were 1 chaos each, or 3 chaos for a roll, but a bunch of streamers have been playing wanders lately, and it's been driving the price up. But that being said, this is still the wand you're going to be looking for. If you're starting as a wander, I recommend farming Blood Aqueducts as whatever build until you can get a Piscators. And this will enable you to, get through maps pretty easily. I'm still using it on my wander. I've been farming tier 16 Haunted Mansions, no problems. It's an amazing weapon. Shield-wise, you got a couple options. Lycosidate is an expensive option, but it's also, really good. If you want to run it and you can afford it, more power to you. Really good option. You can also do an Ashes Mirror. Ashes Mirror will carry your damage early on a wander. I used an Ashes Mirror on this character when I was starting out. It cost me 10C at the time for my Ashes Mirror, but the price has been going up again because, like I said, a bunch of streamers are playing Wanders right now. So I bought this shield for this video just to be able to give you guys a visual, and it cost me about 25 Chaos. I'm going to list it again for 25 Chaos, just resell it after because I don't need it. But yeah, that is one option, is Ashes Mirror. Another option, if you're extremely poor, is to just look for a good evasion shield, one with pretty high evasion, life, and resistances, and it'll work. Your damage will be pretty rough, but it'll do. You have a couple options with rings. So I personally went with Ventors for my MFing. I started out with way worse Ventors than these ones, but I gradually worked my way up to these while I was MFing. I kept upgrading them whenever I would change out my gear. Generally what you're looking for is, well, or at least what I look for is 7+ quantity early on. If I'm really broke, 5+ quantity with a little bit of life and some resistances to cap out. A great way to be able to get cheaper Ventors is to spec into Survivalist and Cloth and Chain. This will give you a ton of resistances. As a Wanderer, we're also pathing through Nullification and Cruel Preparation. So from your tree, you're just getting this massive amount of resistances that allows you to run things like Ventors, and get pretty bad rolls of them. Another option, if you want, Thief's Torment. It's a great ring. You can totally run this ring the entire time you're MFing. It's very good defensively despite not having life because of how good that life gain on hit is. It also has quantity, also has resistances, so you can run this ring and MF the whole time if you want to. But I do recommend upgrading to Ventors to get that life. It'll give you some nice safety, and your life pool will be extremely low on an MF Wander. Boots. In my opinion, if you're going for an MF Wanderer start, you're absolutely wanting to run 20 quantity gold worms. I recommend getting a Leech Enchant on them if you can to save you a point. Oh wow, rip supporting Teemo. But anyways, I recommend getting a Leech Enchant if you can to save you a point or two on the tree because you're going to be really stretched for points when you're MFing. But if you can't get it, it's not the end of the world. I would recommend enchanting it yourself in Cruel Lab. It should only take up to like 20 runs if you really want it, but you don't feel obligated to have a Leech Enchant or anything. Your enchants are not that important. If you can't get gold worms or you don't want to run gold worms because of resistances or life or whatever, just throw on any old rare boots, some 20+ movement speed with flat life and a good bit of resistances. You can probably get those for anywhere from 2 to 5 chaos, maybe 10 if you need specific resistances that are really high. But that'll carry you. You're totally cool to use those. Belt-wise, I highly recommend Abyssgo's Leash early on as a Wander. It gives you a lot of speed. For those unaware, Rampage gives you movement speed per 10 stacks, so you get 1% movement speed for every 10 stacks. This means if you're at 1,000 Rampage stacks, you're getting 100% movement speed. It also gives you increased damage per stack, so really good early game boost to your clear speed. If you don't want to run Ventors, you can just get a nice Stygian Vise and throw an Abyss Jewel into that, or get a leather belt with wet on it and pretty high life and resistances. Your options are open, but this is kind of the belt I recommend. It's also very cheap, so really powerful. Helmet-wise, I personally went with a Rat's Nest, mostly for the movement speed and the very high evasion. You can also go with a Devotos if you want to. Rat's Nest has rarity, and personally I value rarity to some extent, but a lot of people don't. The crit chance is also really nice. Critting more early on, just helps with your damage, smooths it out a little bit. So I went with Rat's Nest, but it doesn't have any life. Another option is Starkanjas. It's extremely cheap, really good helmet, and you can run that to beef up your life pool a little bit. Amulet-wise, I switched to Abysscos. This was one of my later purchases on the character, but it's absolutely worth it still. You can also run a Shaper Quantity Amulet if you have it, or just any rare amulet with life resistances, flat elemental damage, and Wed if possible. And that being said, ring-wise, if you're too poor to afford Ventors or Thief's Torment, just go with rare rings with Wed and work your way up to the Ventors. All these things are not necessary to start out a character, but they're things that you add on as you progress through the character and through gearing the character. Now, my current character, as I talked about in my other video, I'm running Purity of Lightning or Grace. This is because I have all the damage from my jewels already. If you don't have the damage from your jewels yet, you run Wrath. Wrath is an amazing damage boost to the character. As you can see, it adds 16 to 248 lightning damage with a level 20 Wrath. I recommend buying a level 20 Wrath to start the character out. It'll cost you 5C or less, and it's a huge damage gain. That's about 2 perfectly rolled Abyss Jewels worth of damage, lightning damage that is. Yeah, so definitely recommend running Wrath. And then the other aura you're going to run, because you're not running Grace or in Purity of Lightning, you need the damage still, is Herald of Ice with a Curse on Hit setup. So actually I have the gems that I was running when I was MFing. Herald of Ice, Curse on Hit, Assassin's Mark, Onslaught. When you're running low tier maps, Herald of Ice is going to kill a lot of monsters, and that's going to give you Onslaught uptime, especially when you don't have your Abyss Jewels yet. This is a great way to maintain power charges, to keep your Onslaught up, and just, and it will up your clear speed because Herald of Ice hits pretty hard as far as white maps are concerned, and it gives you a little bit of flat light cold damage to attacks, so that's great. Chest piece wise, as I talked about earlier, when I made this character, my first purchase was a 6-link Queen of the Forest. If you can't afford that yet, I would recommend a Tabula Rasa until you can buy a 5-link Queen of the Forest, or an unlinked Queen of the Forest and a Jeweler's Touch to up your Tabula Rasa or up your Queen of the Forest to a 5-link. Whatever is cheaper at the time, go with that. Queen of the Forest is huge when you can get it for MFing, because when you're MFing, you're trying to increase the amount of currency you earn per hour, and 75% more movement speed will significantly increase how fast you're clearing your maps. So you want to upgrade to this as early as possible without hindering your character. The flash setup is going to be very similar to what I'm running on my current Wander. So these are going to be your flasks, but obviously you're not going to run Dying Sun. But you're going to want an instant life flask with staunching if possible, a diamond flask with warding if possible. Well, actually I would say warding is 100% necessary. You're going to want an Alchemist Quicksilver of Adrenaline. You're going to want a Jade Flask of Reflexes. And then your last flask is going to be a Stibnite Flask. The reason for a Stibnite is that it'll help you cap out your evasion. It has 100% increased evasion rating on it. And then, you're going to want to either get your staunching on there or pick up any old flask suffix that you don't have on one of these flasks. It's not necessary to have your warding on this, especially this early when you are running the Stibnite, but as you progress through your flasks, your suffixes become less optional. So that's the flask setup covered. What else is there? Okay, talking about damage. So when you're early on, you're not going to want to run a 6-link Barrage because the majority of your map clear is done with KB. So when I started out my MF character, I ran 6-link Barrage. My links on my Barrage, I'll show you them because, frequently asked. It's actually the same colors as I'm currently running with my Barrage setup. Or sorry, my links on my Kinetic Blast. So I was running exactly these supports. Wed, Kinetic Blast, Elemental Damage with Attacks, Kinetic Blast, Added Lightning, Ice Bite, Hypothermia, and Added Cold. Actually, that's a lie. It was not hypothermia. It was greater multiple projectiles. So to just reiterate, because I fucked up, elemental damage with attacks, kinetic blast, added lightning, ice bite, greater multiple projectiles, and added cold. Those were my kinetic blast links for the entire time that I was magic finding. And the reason we go for those is that Piscator's has a lot of percentage increased elemental damage. So flat elemental damage is extremely high value to us. Ice bite, added cold, and added lightning all add flat elemental damage. And then WED multiplies it. GMP just gives you a better spread. This is going to make your mana cost of your KB extremely high. You can see it's costing 81 mana. So, you don't want to be just using it willy-nilly at times. Like, if you're going to miss things, then I would advise against using it, spamming it there. Otherwise, your links are pretty much the same. I had exactly these links. I was running Immortal Call, Cast 1 Damage Taken, Vol Grace, and Increased Duration in my Gold Worms. You could also run them in your Rat's Nest if you want, or whatever helmet you end up choosing. And then your extra sockets past that, you just use them for leveling gems to create more currency. So what I leveled was I had 3 purities in my shield leveling, and I had 4 purities in my helmet leveling, and on my offhand I had 6 purities leveling. You don't need to do purities. I highly recommend leveling just any meta gem, or supports that you're going to use eventually. So that means you could level up Purity of Fire, Purity of Lightning, Purity of Ice, Scorching Ray, Blood Magic, Kinetic Blast, Barrage, added Lightning, added Cold, Ice Bite, anything that's being used a lot, Cyclone, just don't feel obligated to level the same gems as streamers are leveling, because the more people leveling any given gem, the less likely they are to sell. Try and look at the gems and see what level 21 gems are selling for a bit. And then once you find that, level some of those gems. Ideally, you're looking to level up gems that don't need to be flipped to level. That means you don't want to have to level gems that require quality to be worth something. So like Cyclone is something, even though I recommend it, Cyclone is something you should be hesitant to level, because a level 21 Cyclone doesn't sell for anywhere near as much as a 2120 Cyclone, because then you're losing out the AoE of the quality on it. Where Ethereal Knives, as great as a 21 EK is, people want quality on EK. So you want to figure out gems that ideally don't have to need quality, and if they do need quality, they're worth a lot more with quality. That's a great way to supplement your income while leveling, or while creating a character like this. I also recommend that you don't force your character to high tier maps. When I was making this character and saving up money, I never left tier 3 burial chambers. You can watch my video on how to sustain tier 3 burial chambers, or just any low tier map, and follow that. I'm going to link that down below as well. If you just stay in low tier maps and run MF gear, you're going to be looking at making somewhere between 100 to 200 chaos per hour at least. Just off of pure currency and random uniques and whatever, as long as you're running the maps fast once you get your gear and your levels rolling. Another thing that's really good if you don't want to do the purity setup, because you have a boss that isn't next to a wall naturally, you can run knockback Barrage. So that means Barrage, greater multiple projectiles, knockback, faster attacks. Or there's other ways to set it up, but you can then use that Barrage to push bosses and red beasts and stuff into a wall so that you can kinetic blast them. You can use this tactic. I would show you, but my PoE keeps crashing for some reason, so I guess I can't show you. But anyways, you'd want to use that setup. Another option is, or sorry, not another option. As far as Pantheons, you can see I'm running Soul of Solaris and Ralakash. I run this on pretty much every Wanderer. The reasoning behind it is Solaris has a lot of damage reduction. It makes you a lot safer against crits. And Ralakash, the Cannot Be Blinded, is extremely valuable when you're not running Lycosidae. The Cannot Be Maimed is just quality of life. Maim slows you down. It's really annoying. And lastly, the tree. As far as your tree, it's going to look pretty much the same. If you don't have Abyss Jewels yet, you can spec into the wand wheels up here to supplement your damage early on. Instead of, like, for example, this 3-point Abyss Jewel, this 3-point Abyss Jewel. You do still need the intellect for Piscators, so you're probably going to want to take these Abyss Jewels still. you can cut one of them because you're going to take these int nodes here. What else? Yeah, and right, and you're going to take the resistance nodes early on, and then you're going to eventually spec out of those. Pathfinder versus Deadeye for this, I did my entire magic finding as Deadeye, but you can go Pathfinder, you can go Raider, you can go Ascendant, whatever you want to play your Wander as, do it. I think that pretty much covers everything, guys. Hopefully this answers any questions. If you want to know more, oh, sorry, I forgot bandits. I forgot this in my last video as well. Wanders, you're always a Lyra. You want the resistances, you want the crit multi. It's just by far the best. So, you know, if you're going to play a Wander, you're going to go a Lyra for your bandits. And anyways, so that I think covers everything. I'm sorry if the video missed something. Feel free to ask me about it in my Twitch chat or ask me in the YouTube comments. I will respond to any questions I see in there. And thank you all for watching, and you know, I hope you enjoy your wanders. Follow me on Twitch, join my Discord. Both of those will be linked below. And I hope to see you guys around in my Twitch chats in the future.